Well, Eskom says it will downgrade power cuts from stage 4 to stage 3 tomorrow morning from 5 a.m. The power utility says that stage 3 will then continue until Sunday. Eskom has warned that load shedding will persist over the holiday period and beyond. For more on this, we're joined by energy expert Fanele Mondi. A very good evening to you, Fanele. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Eskom, for the first time, unable to even guarantee several days without interrupted power supply over the Christmas period. Is that indicative of just how deep the power crisis runs?
Good evening, Tembekele, and your viewership. And the interruptions are quite severe, I must say, particularly for this time of the year. As you know, most companies have closed. Of course, the hospitality industry is really active. But most energy consumers have closed at this time. So this is a period of low demand. To have this level of interruptions is quite concerning. As the EIUG, we are even more concerned about January to say when the load starts picking up, what will happen. In the media briefing, which was earlier this afternoon by Eskom, a question was asked to say, is there any progress in terms of getting the diesel to close the gap in terms of the supply shortages for the new year? And the answer was not very clear, except to say government and Eskom are still talking. We really believe that there is an urgency to deal with that. I mean, January is just around the corner when the load comes back to the system.
And some of the hopes in the new year would be on Eskom, public enterprises and Treasury being able to hammer out, finalize a deal around purchasing diesel, because that has been the saving grace to an extent over the last 12 months and more, in fact. But when you look at the results released today, when you look at spending on diesel, it's in fact doubled from in the last year, from about 7 billion to now 14.7 billion rand. And you wonder if government will want to spend that much of its money on diesel and how long that can continue until a more permanent solution is found.
You are correct, Tembegele. We need to focus on finding a permanent solution. Putting all of this money into diesel is obviously a short-term measure, or actually you could even say an immediate measure. But when you consider the damage, done to the economy due to unserved energy, because when you do not have energy, it means you are actually damaging the economy. So that cost is much higher than the cost of the diesel. So our view is that we need to find that money. The sad thing about this state of affairs is that the results we got now are actually 9 months after the effect, because those are the reflection of numbers as at 31st of March 2022. Right now, the situation is completely different. I think we will get a better sense of what is currently happening when they announce the interim results, which will show the September or end of September status. But from what we have picked up on the various media briefings Eskom has been making, this year alone, they ran out of funds when they were around about 11.7 billion, say just under 12 billion.
Right.
Then they started having challenges. So the money that is required really at this point is to say, can we find enough money to close the gap up to the next financial year? So it will not be in the region of 14 billion from the government. That's my assumption, depending, of course, on how the plant works, So we still think that it must be found.
Right. You mentioned the issue of loss. Eskom has reported a 12.3 billion rand loss. That's a full year loss for 2022 in the period that ended around March of this year. It's better than the last period on a comparison, because then they were at about 25 billion rand. But it still is a staggering figure for an entity that is so crucial for the running of the country, basically.
It is indeed. I think, yes, the financial figures are showing a better improvement from the previous year, that is the year ended 2021. But when we look at the outlook, it becomes scary, because if you look at the outlook, they are projecting over 20 billion rands by end of March 2023. So in the next 3 months, they'll be back in the deep in terms of the losses. So the numbers we are seeing right now are really not as meaningful, in my view, as the numbers perhaps we can get on this September, and the real status rate will be March now 2023. And from what we are looking, situation is bad. They've run out of money for diesel. They are projecting 20 plus billion rands loss. So the situation is back in the red, so to say.
And Eskom has credited, in fact, the tariff increase of about 15% to reducing the losses in the period now under review in this report. They are currently asking NERSA to increase tariffs by more than 30%. Do you think they've been able to make a strong enough case for that?
I think the decision NERSA has to make it is indeed a very difficult decision. It is true that Eskom, as it is not financially sustainable, and it needs some kind of injection of money. However, there is also a reality which NERSA has to deal with, the affordability to the economy. To have 32% increase, on the current levels of tariffs, is just going to put other businesses into a real bad situation. If you consider, for instance, in terms of the members I represent from EIUG, some of those members, the electricity cost is in the region of about 40%. So you can imagine if your base cost of 40% all of a sudden increase overnight by 32%, I mean, that business is really put in a very, very difficult position. The same applies, I think, to the households. Households are really in a tight corner. 32% is going to be impactful in terms of their budget. So NERSA has to create some kind of balance. We hope that they will give enough to assist Eskom to improve their financial sustainability, but also consider that the consumer also has the affordability issue to consider.
Right. Thank goodness you don't have to rely on Eskom for power in that car. Final question, Fanele, let me ask you about, you mentioned the issue of debt. Municipal debt continues to rise. It's now at about 56 billion rand. If there were to be a tariff increase, given that these municipalities mainly have said that they have poor collection levels, not only because they don't want to collect, but because people are poor and can't afford to pay, do you expect then municipal debt to spiral further out of control?
I think that there may well be some of that. I mean, what is still not clear is I think when we look at the municipal debt, there are two probably, or at least two things we need to look at. One is the willingness to pay, and where it's got nothing to do with how much money you have, but you prioritize other expenditure. The other one obviously is the ability, to pay, where you probably do not collect enough revenue to be able to then pay for your bulk services. So each municipality will have different reasons for this. For instance, we have had on some of the court papers Eskom put in their battle, where they indicate municipalities who have got a collection rate of over 90%, and yet they don't pay back Eskom. So that's where the willingness issue is versus the ability. But certainly those whose challenge is the ability to pay, where they've got low collection levels, that we can expect to further drop, certainly.
Fanele Mondi, good to speak to you, energy expert. Thank you for taking your time out from your holiday to speak to us.